very good at this. Okay, got it. Um, I am quite exhausted by this morning's and this afternoon's session, so please forgive me. It's been really interesting, and although we've been freezing, we've been attentive, very thoughtful conference. We're based in London, just a very small office for the last 25 years, and particularly small because we wanted to select what we do, how we do it, and who we work with. Hands-on design rather than managing big numbers. So we have designed, or I have designed in my past, hospitals, airports, etc., just about every environment you could imagine. On the other hand, we did one or two workplace interiors that has become so iconic that now everybody comes to us for workplace design, so we kind of become experts on that. And it is from big headquarters to co-working, big clients, small clients, etc. We have got a global footprint, unfortunately too much flying, but we also do a lot of virtual meetings nowadays. So major clients, Swiss Re headquarters in Zurich. Vitra has been our client for 22, 23 years now, and Microsoft has been an interesting project, headquarters in Schiphol, but we also collaborate with major architects. Just now we are working with David Chipperfield. We have worked with Herzog Domeron on Tate Modern, and Dina and Dina. So from one end of the world to the other end, we have experience of different cultures. In our approach to the workplace, we challenge our clients and our colleagues, which is really important in terms of creating a human-centric workplace. One that has a soul, one that has a heart. A little bit like home, you know, why do I say like home? I think it's just a place we like to work in when we have the opportunity, which is formed of a series of diverse spaces that support us throughout the day. So a bit like home, why can't an office be like this? Because office also facilitates and gives us opportunities that enables us to do variety of tasks as an individual, as a team, in collaboration, in communication, in concentration, and with pleasure, as Rolf Feldbaum says. Yeah. So when we work at home, we automatically choose the most appropriate place that suits both our mood, which is really important, and task in hand. It could be at a kitchen table, I do that quite often myself, on a sofa, comfortable chair by the fire with your pets, and garden on a sunny day. Why? I think these are what I think are quality spaces. I've gone back, huh? Damn. Sorry. Unfortunately, most workplaces fail to offer this diversity that a home gives. They remain as monofunctional and monotonous spaces. I call them furniture graveyards. You know, you just have basically desk after desk until the horizon, and you know, if you're a big company, that's hundreds of people, and you go there, you work, you feel dreadful, you come home, Monday mornings you got a tummy ache, you don't want to go to work. Of course, the role of the office has changed in the current climate, technologically, socially, economically, environmentally, and you know, we're talking about increasing awareness of workplace, the need for sustainable solutions, ecological solutions. There is BREEAM, there is legislations, and so on. And at a business level, which is speed to response, productivity, flexibility, adaptability. These are all the key issues of today. But at a personal level, people are looking for empowerment, self-determination, ownership, belonging, diversity, and well-being. So, oh fuck, sorry. My daughter says I have a very bad habit of swearing. I now got a grandchild, so I have to behave myself. Sorry. So the role of the office is changing, but the behaviors in the workplace is also changing. It needs to respond and cope with a less stable environment, as some of the speakers have said earlier on. But nevertheless, we need to support and stimulate new requirements and responses. So there's more thinking time, fewer scheduled meetings, they want spontaneous meetings, quicker recognition of changing needs or circumstances, more decisive management, more engaged workforce, willing to experiment, take risks, greater sense of identification. Rather than just a group department, you're more part of a community. So everyone is talking about the office. I call it the hashtag office, you know. It's a hot topic, and it's Instagrammed, it is Facebook, and goodness knows, you know, before we even finish a project, we're out in the public, so you're globally exposed, and you're being ranked formally and informally by visitors or employees. So God help you if you did a bad office, because it's right out there straight away, you know. So this poor person is me, although it's a man, but you know, we take the role of both genders these days. So we have a big luggage to carry. Why? In the old days, and I'm quite old, clients used to come to us with quantitative requirements. Now it is changed into more aspirational and qualitative demands, and there isn't any straightforward brief any longer. They just want the best. They want their employees to be happy. They, you know, they want efficiency. They want better, fast responses, etc., etc. So really, now it has become more organizational and cultural behavior changes that we, as the architects, has to deal with. So in a way, we are quasi psychiatrists at times, or management consultants, as well as being an architect and a designer. So the requirements are enormous. Clients are wanting to represent the culture and the goals of the company. Fine. They want to more effective and productive and appropriate and pleasurable way of working. And the role of the designer is to translate these criteria, sometimes actually competing ambitions, to align them and to turn them into a physical environment and an emotional environment without our egos involved in it. And I mean style, you know. So it is not about us as the architect and the designer because we like it this way, but it is actually understanding the workforce, the people, and how we approach that, and how we design for people, basically. What makes a human-centered workplace, I think in my experience, and we've done this so many years now, is really diversity. We need to recognize that people work in different ways throughout the day, different age groups. You know, nobody retires, like I haven't retired at this age. And we have to allow for all those different needs. So possibly one of the solutions is to create diverse work settings, diverse concepts to enable people to work as a team, and collaboration is obviously really important in this, but as an individual, allowing ownership, well-being, and personalization. In communication, create innovative spaces that will help people to communicate and collaborate. In concentration, the people's need to be private and also retreat, because not all of us feel like communicating every day, every moment of the day, and with pleasure. And with pleasure is important because actually when you think about it, we spend more time at work than we do at home. So really, how do we create an environment for all these people that come to work at 8 o'clock, leave at 6 o'clock, depending on which country you're in, and that's relentless 5 days a week. So 2 days you have at home. How can we achieve this human-centric office that we're talking about? Of course, this is also interpreted in different ways by different designers and architects. In our case, what we do give a lot of importance to is user dialogue, user communication. It has to be an inclusive process. We need to understand and discover the face of the company and the people who work there. So we do have lots of user group meetings throughout, from the beginning of a project right to the end. We also, in doing so, we are close to the user, which then means we can challenge the way the client as well as the users, sometimes conflicting ideas, of course, that happens. So what do we do? Generally I start with asking what is work, and of course if I could ask you this, what is work and where did we learn how to work? So in a way, trying to open up people's minds into how one can work. Is there another way than what we always do? So is it, as you see in the images, is that human or not human? Is that efficiency or misery? It is how you interpret this. So there is confronting user perceptions, It is how we do things, and why we do things is need to be asked to the users. So that enables one to actually get close to the people, understand their concerns and worries, and again, understand why they work the way they do, engage with them, explain, and eventually gain trust. So day number 1, when they move into their new environment, they understand why it is the way it is, because there is also the goals of the company, business needs, etc. So you do gain trust if you take them along with you right to the end. So physical environment, how we do this. I mean, one of the things we do is break the walls that surrounds us. So I'm talking about open plan office. The images you're seeing is Novartis corridor, which is the finance department. It was a pilot project that informed how the Novartis campus was going to develop in Basel. So Dr. Vasala at the time got in touch with us, and through a competition, we won the pilot project. So pilots are also terribly important because it actually informs how the space is working, whether it's successful or not. So this was the corridor, or the space that we had to design. We've broken all the walls, knocked them down in order to create an open plan office. Now, everybody hates open plan office, of course, so we had a lot of issues related to that. We did have our user group meetings and challenged them, why? So, yeah, one of them is loss of privacy, of course. In this corridor, it's an interesting story because in this corridor, there was a finance department. They gave us the most difficult department and the most, so I don't want to say boring, but anyway. We asked questions, we asked questions to them saying, what is the culture of your company, etc. And this guy said, well, I joined this corridor 3 months ago. So actually, there was no culture. It was this corridor that he basically joined. He wasn't even thinking of culture, he was thinking of the corridor that he has to unfortunately work with, and he only knew the guy next door to him and the one opposite, that was it. So there was no community at all. And they didn't want a community. They said, we work singularly. Why do we have to work? Why do we have to communicate? Again, Novartis, as we broke the walls down, we had to break the mental and the emotional walls that people carry along with them, like like the luggage that I carry. Here they are. These are the people who said they don't need to communicate, they don't need to collaborate. Actually, communicating and collaborating. They're the same people who gave me a very hard time in my user group meetings, saying we don't need to do this, we don't need to do that. And day number one, they're actually already talking to each other. And this was really important in pharmaceutical business, but then in any business it is important to have this collaboration. Another thing that we do is the human scale. Now, this is an architectural issue that one needs to, I give a lot of importance to. This is Swiss Re headquarters in Zurich, and it is about 1.5 football field big, and we have to have over 1,000 people in a building, in this building, and how do we make it human in a way? Well, it's not that easy to make it human. I think all one can do is, in our experience, is reduce the scale as much as possible. So I'm talking about usually about 15 people, maximum 20 people working together. After that, it becomes difficult. It becomes inhuman as far as I'm concerned. So you have your open vistas, you have your collaboration spaces, etc. So you can actually bump into each other, a bit like a city. You know, you start designing it like a city. You know, you have a plaza, you have streets, you have roads, you have houses. So these are neighborhoods in these bubbles, which are the numbers that I'm talking about. In between is soft areas. So it is also important to create armatures that connect people and functions, encouraging spontaneous interaction. It is Novartis, again, this pilot project I'm talking about. It is the finance group. And yes, we put a spine right through the space and prevented people from cross-fertilization this way, because we wanted them, having come out of this corridor, they needed to get to know each other. So sort of triangulated way of walking around, because then you bump into another person that you never really met before, and so on. So in a way, a lot of thought goes into this particular plan, which was the length of a small football field, which is about 100 meters. So you basically moderate the space and create barriers, sometimes against their wishes. You know, why can't we go across? And I often said to them, well, jump over the bench. That's okay, you can go across if you wanted to, you know. All these sort of things, you know, why can't you sit on a floor in a workplace? It's this whole, designing is easy. It is dealing with people that is difficult. When you're actually telling them, well, you know, if you worked in the university on the floor, why can't you work here on the floor if you needed to? You know, sort of loosen up, relax. Very difficult in Switzerland. We did lots of projects in Switzerland. And Germany is difficult too. So creating opportunities and serendipitous meetings throughout the space as much as possible. Again, these are the people who I use it as this pilot as a good example of people saying, we don't talk to each other, we don't need to talk to each other, we're finance, we just deal with figures, no need to communicate. Well, what the hell? You know, they're all communicating, and these are not posed photographs, they're just a day in the life of Novartis, just taking photos of people communicating, collaborating. Physical, visual connections are important, where in these variety of projects where we actually blow up the slab, make openings so that you can actually from one floor to another floor communicate, collaborate, say, hey, Joe, because our buildings are designed vertically, just cutting each other off, basically. You may be in one company, but you don't know from one floor to the other floor who is what and what department it is. So important thing to actually try and find means to actually help them to see each other to bump into each other as much as possible. Visual connections to the and physical connections to the street, to the outside world is really important. Whenever we can, we produce a garden in an office. And that is Vitra at the top, where we have on the first floor of a Grimshaw building. It's a factory building where we created 2 gardens where people could go out to. So important when the sun shines to be able to go out, get some fresh air, work outside. You know, why not? So where we can, we do that. Otherwise, we do everything we can for people to be able to connect to the outside world somehow. Open up the boundaries, the views, the vistas. Get it more human. I mean, this morning's discussion or this afternoon's, what was it? Oh, I forgot his name already. Colin? Was it Colin? When he's talking about neuroscience. Where we feel so good when we're amongst greenery. It is so much better to do a garden than actually put bits of potted plants, really bad potted plants that never gets watered. So this is another thing that one should be aware of as architects and designers or clients, that at a vertical building it is really important to create co-working spaces where people could get together. In this instance, what we've done is it is the reception. That's where you enter and where you got the coffee. There's a library. There's all sorts of things that's happening. And that floor by floor, there are different companies. So you enable companies to also collaborate because everybody's got different skills, and why not? It could have been one company as well, where we would have created a co-working space for everybody in a tall building. But for different tenancies, it is also important to bring the skills together. Am I doing it time? Okay. Then another item that we find really important to do is to find the space, the heart of the space, architecturally, organizationally, socially, and emotionally. So, there's lots of little hearts in this football field, but there's also a big heart where people arrive at and actually connect first thing in the morning. So this is Vitra's office, where people come in and they start the day with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, saying hello. They talk about rugby, who won what. So, which is also important about this, social interaction, it's not always about business. We were talking about analogy of a home. Well, it is nice to create living rooms in the workplace where people can feel comfortable, sit on the sofa and work, and actually move. So movement is really important. I don't necessarily believe in movement of the furniture up and down, or moving furniture from here to there with wheels, but I believe in people movement, that we all need to get up and go somewhere else, change scenery if we want to be productive. Freshen up, get away from the computer, good for your back, and so on. That kills all the idea of chairs that does 15 different whatever. I never sit on one of those. I just sit on a 4-legged chair, but I make sure that I get up and walk and change scenery. Dining room, great place for meeting, eating, working. So, as designers, you need to convince the client where best, how to create a dining space that's not empty all day and it's only occupied at lunchtime. So, make use of these spaces to become workplaces as well. And then, of course, retreats, individuals needs to be private, focused. You don't always want to work as a group, as a team, so it is nice to create spaces that you can retreat to. Equally, just like at university, a library, a quiet work room is also very important in the whole configuration of an open plan. I just told our colleague here, the next keynote speaker, why open plan has to be the future workplace, but how people do hate open plan. And so what do? We just create diversity in open plan and create a human scale if we can. And rooms that are for meeting, not always spontaneous. Sometimes you have to do formal meetings. And how can we do them so that it doesn't create meeting fatigue? Again, bringing in the nature into the room is quite important, so you understand what's going on. It's already evening and we still haven't made a decision, so just connection to the outside. Maker rooms are quite popular at the moment. It enables people to get away from the computer tyranny, to do teamwork, use their hands, again, refresh their minds, and then maybe they go back to the computer. Personalization is a big top issue. User ownership, they don't like hot desking, they don't like sharing desks. Why? Because they like to have their bits and pieces around them. And in the case of this lady, she liked her dogs. So the entire desk, the window, the cupboards, everywhere was covered in dog photographs. Well, if I was sitting next to her, I'll find this really offensive, although I do like dogs. It is an imposition to your colleague to actually bring your private life into work. Work is not, it is public domain, basically. If you, in your home even, you don't have your daughter putting Kylie Minogue posters in the living room, do you? I'm going way back now. So, when Kylie Minogue was popular, but she can do that in her bedroom, of course. So in a way, we seem to forget that these companies and offices that we work for is a public domain, really. That why people are feeling so vulnerable that their private objects, their child's photo, the husband's whatever, wife, is on this desk. It's a space that's shared by everybody, and really, I'm not interested necessarily in your wife's photograph, one can say. So how do we deal with the personalization? I think it is actually setting up scenes that makes that environment comfortable, archetypal maybe, so that, if there is a dog, then it's a shared dog. If it's a holiday postcard, then it is put up in a pin-up board that is communal to everybody. Personalization could happen in a mutual, shared way where it is a shared visual delight rather than singularly. Adaptability and flexibility is also really important because we don't really know where we're going. Nothing is static. So how can we design so that we can reconfigure easily for the future requirements, really. Sustainability and longevity in the designs that we create is, I think, the most important. This is 20 years of life of Vitra's offices, which basically hasn't changed, only in a minor way, where no longer people receive post because it all comes by email. So we got rid of the post boxes, we got rid of printers because they've gone paper free. So there are certain things, yes, you do need to change, but you design the space in such a way that those changes are easily adaptable and that a space lives for a long time. We don't want to put things down and start all over again and again and again. We don't want to put build more buildings if we can avoid it. Reuse if we can. This is a factory being reused as an office. So in summary, it'll be good to create workplaces with a soul that has obviously have to incorporate virtual environment, physical environment, but importantly emotional environment too. And I'm exhausted. Whoop. So that's just a thing. It's not about, oh, don't we do things well? But it's a really important quotation from someone